Have you ever made a choice that you knew was right, but somehow it still felt incredibly wrong? Hi, and welcome back if you are a return viewer. And if you are first time here on my channel, welcome. I am Mariette, and I help women through life's transitions. All right, so today I want to talk to you about part 3 and part 4 of my Thought Thaw Method, um, which helps you work through your thinking so that change becomes easier when you can really understand how your thoughts create your reality. In my last video, I did part 1 and 2, and today I want to do 3 and 4. Now, I'm going to use a little bit of my experience again to start to explain a little bit about how this works. So, one of the changes that I went through about 10 years ago now was my family and I moved to Mexico. We brought our two young kids who were, I think, 8 and 10 at the time. And we moved to Mexico with the plans of staying there. They joined school, um, and we were really excited about this new change. Now, I knew this was the right change for us. I knew that I was ready to shake up my world, live somewhere different, and really enjoy a different culture, warm weather, living near the beach. My husband is a surf photographer, so for him it was the perfect place to be. Now, what surprised me is that when we arrived in Mexico, it wasn't long before we were faced with the reality of incredibly hot weather and also a hurricane warning. So we were at a in transit place where we were staying before we moved into our permanent housing. And the apartment that we were staying at had us all shut down to prepare for a hurricane. And in that moment, I was wondering, how could this be what we're dealing with? How could we have got this so wrong? How could we have put our children in danger's way as well as us? And, really had questioned at that point why we had made this big decision of selling everything up that we owned, selling our house, selling all our belongings, and moving to another country. So this was a moment where we really questioned everything. And like I said in the beginning, how could this be so right and yet feel so wrong? So, in the moment when I was believing these thoughts and noticing how it was making me feel, which is part 1 and part 2 of the thought work, um, I was realizing that I was scared. I was nervous about what we had got ourselves into. I was questioning everything, and I was really uncertain about how things were going to unfold. But today I want to talk to you about part 3 and part 4 of the thought work. So, part 3 and part 4 of the Thought Thaw Method are as follows. Part 3, so I'll just go from the beginning. Part 1 is, and let me just make sure I've got it right. Part 1 is catch it. So that's where you're noticing what you're thinking. Grab a hold of it so you can take a look at it. Number 2 is feel it. So paying attention to really what you are feeling as you're believing the thought that you're thinking. And number 3 is imagine your life without it. So in my example of moving to Mexico, in that moment when we were really thinking about, did we make the silliest mistake ever to uproot our family and to move when we are moving to this place that's incredibly hot and uncomfortable, and there are hurricanes regularly, and the risk of, having to uproot our lives and things falling apart and, needing to escape from hurricanes. And I spent the time doing what I say here, which is imagining life without that thought. So in the moment, it was quite interesting that we were sitting at our place that we were staying. Everything was incredibly still. It was like the the calm before the storm. And the kids and I were actually in the pool, and we were allowing ourselves to really just be in the present moment. We knew that we had a place to go and hide and be safe. But while we were leading up to it, we allowed ourselves to be very present with where we were. And we were in the pool, enjoying Mexico. And yes, there was perhaps something coming, but it hadn't hit us yet. And we were able to imagine life without the story that we had made the wrong decision. And we allowed ourselves just to be very present. And luckily, things didn't fall apart and all was fine. So I had given myself new evidence to show that we could be okay, even when we're incredibly hot, there are pools around, and when there are a risk of hurricane. We had things in place where we could be safe, we could hide away and ride through any kind of weather situation that there was. So that's part 3. You imagine your life without that thought, not being able to think it at all. And I'm not saying again that you can't think it, but you're imagining just for the moment what life would be like without that thought. And then number 4 is finding the thought that is truer. So for me, the thought really was that we are okay. Everything is fine right now. And if the worst case scenario happens, we have a plan of how we'll ride through it. And we were able to feel better in the moment, knowing that if we believed the worst case scenario story that we had made the worst decision ever, we would have spent those hours feeling incredibly uncomfortable as we waited for the worst to happen. But instead, we decided to think the thought that, which felt truer to us, that we are okay, even if things like hurricanes and hot weather are in front of us. We can handle it and we'll be fine. We are around people who experience this all the time and they know what to do. So that type of thinking helped us to be able to see the situation differently and really challenge that original thought, which was we had made the worst mistake ever. So who did I become without that thought? It was a person who could face difficulty and also trust that we were prepared and we could get through this together if there was something that was going to happen. And that allowed us to really get through a situation and not dive into worst case scenario thinking. So now I want you to give it a try. So if you didn't watch the last video, you can go back and download the worksheet that goes with part 1 and part 2 of the thought work model, and then come back to this one and download part 3 and 4 of how to go through the second parts of this thought work. So this is where you're going to get still with yourself. You will have already noticed what thoughts you are thinking, the ones that keep coming up, the ones that are loud and then feeling distressed or uncomfortable or afraid, or whatever that feeling might be. And now you're going to look at part 3. So you're going to look at what is it that my life would be without this thought. So imagining that you are no longer capable of thinking the thought that you had been thinking, what would your life be like in this moment? And I'm just talking about in this moment. What would life be like if you couldn't think the thought, whatever it is that you're thinking? And take your time to really go there in this present moment. What would life be like without the thought? And then part 4 is, what's a truer thought that you can think that feels better than your original thought? But it still has to feel true for you. So for me, when I felt that we were, it was difficult, it was uncomfortable to be in this situation, but we were around people who knew what to do, we were prepared, and we were fine. We were in the pool and we were comfortable. And for you, what about it right now feels truer than your original thought? So take the time. Often a way to find that truer thought is to do the opposite of what you believed and to question that and see if you can find how that is truer. And this does take practice. It does take, finding, because we hold so tightly onto our original thought, it's hard to find the other ones. But take your time with it and see if you can find how the opposite is true, or how, um, an less extreme thought is true. So take your time, give it a try. If you need any help, feel free to reach out and you can book a coffee chat with me, a free call, and I can answer any of your questions and help you through it. Or check out my website for more information there if you would like to work with me. All right, so give it a try, and I look forward to hearing from you. You can put anything in the comments if you want to share what you found out. And otherwise, I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.